All right. Obviously the Kaizen team saved the best for the last. So no pressure, guys. Yeah. So just before we begin, just quick show of hands. How many of us over here have businesses or education operations or investments in Chinese education sector? One. That's that. Two. So slim. Three. And obviously our panelists included, so a few. And how many of us over here are looking at China as a potential market for our education companies? All right. That's a lot more. That's good to know. So we know who our audience is. And lastly, how many of us are looking to partner with Chinese education companies and bring them to Southeast Asia or India or any such geographies? All right. So that's interesting. So we have got people who are definitely very interested in what China can offer to them as entrepreneurs or investors. Great. All right. So what we'll do is, so we actually were waiting for this response to maybe customize our questions. So we have got a list of questions which are more custom to the kind of audience. So what we'll do is we'll spend a little bit of time talking about the Chinese education market first, so just some facts and figures and some experience from our panelists. And I'll obviously allow them to introduce themselves just in a moment. But let me begin with some high-level observations. In my prior life as a consultant, I would have shown you slides with fancy data, but I think somebody else did that yesterday already, one of my past colleagues. But one thing that he mentioned very well was that China is a market in itself. And that's true from every angle. China is the largest education market outside of the United States. China is on one side, rest of Asia is on the other side. Even though you have markets like India, Southeast Asia, Australia, they're all on one side, and China is a beast in itself. So, and it's a very exciting market. I spent 10 years in that market, tracking the growth. 80% of the regional investment in education goes into China. We are seeing, of the last 2 years, we have actually seen a number of IPOs coming out of China as well, so which is a sign that the market is developing and scale companies are coming up. They're definitely ahead of the curve in education. We have seen not just that, but we are also seeing Chinese investors and Chinese companies reaching out. So, large funds like Primavera invested in World Strides, which is an education travel company. They invested in a school company called Stratford Schools, which depends on Chinese students going to the U.S. We had likes of China First Capital invest here in a local Singaporean early years company called Mind Champs, and they are now coming. They made a small investment in the company here, but the big investment for them is a joint venture to take Mind Champs to the Chinese market. So a lot of activity is happening both domestically within China, but also across the border, which is of interest to us. So clearly, it presents an opportunity, which is a two-way opportunity. It's a two-way street. So with that, let me hand over to our panelists, and I would request them to introduce themselves and perhaps give a quick overview of how they see the China education opportunity, again, thinking both ways, where the growth is coming from for themselves, for their companies, and in generally. So I'll let you. So Sophie, from you.
Thanks. So good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Sophie. I'm a partner at JMD.edu. So we are leading B2B edtech media in China. So what we do is to inform and connect professionals who work in the education industry in China as well as globally. Two things I want to mention for our organization. First is that we do a lot of journalism, which is we report news and release reports on China education, as well as what's happening around globe to the Chinese audience. Although our main readers are Chinese, but we do have some English stories and reports about the overview of China education. So if anybody's interested, you can download the reports to get an idea of what's happening in China in the past few years. The other thing that we do is that we also organize events like this. So we are the organizer of one of the largest EdTech summit in China. Last year, we attract 5,000 people around the world to Beijing to gather together to talk about education in China as well as in the globe. So I will first open up with a few trends that we see in China in 2017, and then Jun and Andrew can supplement. So a few ones that 2017 is like have a lot of activities in China. So one trend that we see actually coming out of in the spotlight actually from the very early in 2017 till now is the online language learning for kids. This is we have a few actually come up a few unicorns in this segment, like VIP Kid, iTutor Group. Like VIP Kid raised like $200 million in 2017, and its direct competitor Dada ABC actually just announced that they have financed $100 million. So what they does is online language learning for the kids. What is solve the problem of the Chinese kids now can stay at their homes and have a native English speakers to talk to teach them how to speak English. So this is one large trend. We can see in China market that language learning is definitely a very huge demand there, as well as we see the online technologies or like live streaming technologies now can solve the problem of access of native English speakers as well as other, because it's expanded to other subjects, not only English but also like math, test prep, and other subjects. So this is one trend. The other trend is that we see is the two-teacher system, which also solves mostly the access of quality teachers in China. And this goes to, I say like more of the rural areas and third and fourth tier cities. So in like cities like Beijing and Shanghai, of course, there is very adequate educational resources. But in smaller cities and rural areas, the students can have like not very good teachers. So a lot of institutions like Tao Education or New Oriental schools, they develop this two-teacher system, which allows a high-quality teachers in first-tier cities to live streaming their lectures to like 10, 15 classrooms in the third and fourth tier cities. And then they have a second teacher as a teacher system in the local classroom to solve the problem of access of good education resources. So these are the two trends that I would say like in China in these few years, a lot of efforts have been done to improve the access of good educational resources to the Chinese market.
Thanks, Sophie. Good afternoon, everybody. Allow me to introduce myself and the company I represent first. My name is Jun Ling. I'm the head of business development and head of business intelligence at 17 Zuoye, also known as Homework Together. So the company is a digitalized homework platform where we deploy hundreds of people across China to visit public schools to promote our platform to teachers, where the teachers would assign homework through our platform and students do their homework through our platform. And because of the data that we collected from the homework side, and then we provide premium products on top of that, which is personalized for students, and then we sell that as a business. This is mainly what we do. In terms of the investment trend that we see, in 2017 alone, there were over 400 investment cases that are publicly released in China. And adding them up would be $3 billion investment size. 19% of them are in K-12 space. That's the space that we're operating in. Then following that would be preschool and then vocational training, and then some quality education courses and education information sectors. From my point of view, a lot of these trends will actually extend to 2018. But towards the end of 2017, we see a lot of new trends coming inside. So there were government policies promoting STEM education, for instance. So there are a lot of the education materials coming out, not just in the previous dominated curriculum-related ones, but also other spaces. And then RYB, which is an international school trade, went public last year, although it had a scandal, but then a lot of other international schools are like planning to go public. Andrew is an expert here, he will supplement later. And then there are a lot of content-based companies coming out because China is actually now known for its sharing economy, like sharing bikes, sharing cars, and now also sharing knowledge. And then so China has a lot of companies focused on building online libraries and digitalized reading materials, so there's also a space. And because, and another trend would be because of the maturity evolvement of technology, there are a lot of AI companies starting to apply its technology in the education space. And a lot of them are purely in education space. So we, I can talk about it later, we actually partner with all of them. So these are kind of trends I see. Pass it to Andrew.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Andrew Yang. I'm from the Xinnan Yang Corporation. Compared to the two ladies, our company is very old-fashioned and traditional education service provider. So we have three business. One is the after-school tutoring business. So this is not online tutoring. We do that, deploy hundreds of learning centers all over the Shanghai. So we are one of the largest of its kind in East China. And also we have over 1,000 franchisee schools, learning centers all over China. And the second part of business is the daytime school, so including kindergartens and also some bilingual schools as well as international schools. And last part is the vocational training. So we have a vocational college located nearby Shanghai. So these are our main business. We have a long history. So one of our largest shareholder is the Shanghai Jiao Tong University, one of its finest of its kind in China. I think it's there. Ladies talked a lot about the trends in Chinese education business. I think we see also some new trends in our own areas. For example, that there are some mix of deregulation and also more regulation in China. So I think one of the largest policy change happened last year is the amendment of the promotion of non-state education law. So in this new amendment, allow the education institutions to transform into a for-profit organization. So it's opened a door for the IPO in China. In the past, most of the education institutions like New Oriental or TAL went public in the United States. This is one trend, good news for this private education sector. But on the other hand, the government placed more regulations in terms of contents taught in international schools. So now the international school cannot, say, we just borrow all the contents from the developed countries like UK or US for these students with Chinese passport. So that there will be a big challenge for them how to integrate these international curriculums into the local curriculums. We also saw a lot of opportunities for the service providers for these international schools. Another trend, I think, especially in the tutorial service areas, is consolidation. These after-school tutoring service in China is a big business. I think the total market size around 600 billion RMB, like 100 billion US dollar. So it's a big market, and the penetration rate actually into some second-tier, third-tier cities, rural areas, still low compared to the situation in South Korea. So we still see a lot of potential in this market, and we are expanding our presence, and some even bigger players like New Oriental and TL is also accelerating their their presence in the smaller and cities. So there plays some challenge for the middle-sized players. So that, especially nowadays in China, if you acquire a new client or new student, the cost is pretty high. So that will be a very good reason for any foreign newcomers to work with Chinese institutions to develop a business in China. Yes.
All right, thanks, Andrew. So that's a good way, and you touched upon one of the first points that most companies looking to enter China as an outsider face is regulations, right? And the regulations, it seems, as you're saying, are opening at one end, closing on the other end. So, and then there are regulations which are a bit more to do with the financial structuring of the companies, which for foreign investors pose a different kind of challenge. So keep that aside for a moment, but let's talk about the education side of the regulations. To the audience who are definitely looking at perhaps a diversified set of sectors to invest, which are the sectors which are more friendly from a regulatory standpoint, and which are the sectors which you would advise the audience to perhaps be cautious of? I wouldn't say stay away, but cautious of and how they tread.
I can add some additional information. Of course, the least regulated segment of the education should be after-school tutoring service, because this is not something that the government will do, and also there's not direct, interfere with these daytime school. But I think it's good to be cautious, because there are some big players like a TAL. They actually they transform the market into like very competitive market for even at primary school level for these mathematics contests and mathematics courses. So that raised the attention of the government, and so there's a new like a notice released by government say that it's not it's prohibited from offering courses ahead of the curriculum. That, of course, will place some challenge for the players, but on the other hand, it open door for this not directly related, curriculum-related courses, like mentioned. Jun just mentioned the STEM and other art-related curriculums, or we call it enrichment subjects. So I think in that aspect is, I think still the after-school tutorial service is something that we can get into immediately and without very strict regulation to think about. Especially when you work with us, we already have a license. It's easier. So there's kind of we actually need new contents and can offer some markets. But most regulated area actually is the compulsory education phase, like bilingual schools. That time that you have, usually it takes 2 years to get a license, but there's no promise to whether the result. So it takes a long time to prepare. So and also costly in the beginning.
I can add some comments to that. So Andrew mentioned that obviously to work with Chinese companies is one way to expand to a different market. And he mentioned that the companies in need of content. So that's actually quite common for Chinese companies. A lot of Chinese companies are in need for content. And especially China is more and more aware of the importance of copyright. So previously, we just plagiarize a lot of things, and then we don't really work with others because for plagiarism, you can get things for free. But because of the awareness that's booming up, for instance, we partner with a lot of publishers, but actually we need content not just with publishers, but more innovative content. For instance, interactive content or STEM-related ones, not just curriculum-based ones. So this would definitely be an area if any companies in this field wants to enter into China. And then another area would be technology-based companies. I've already mentioned it because China is really catching up with the speed of technology, and it's actually have a lot of policies favoring partnering with technology companies, including tax reductions, etc. But for areas that you should kind of avoid coming into China, so although Andrew mentioned after-school tutoring is a space that you can come into China for, but because of recent change of government regulations, so Chinese government now are actually banning. You also mentioned like the previous dominant market in teaching like Olympic math, which is like something that you shouldn't learn at your phase. So like Chinese students in previous years, like we share a lot of study burdens to study things that are ahead of our time, and this kind of focus kind of shifting off. So this may be good news to some companies or may not be good news. Yeah, just pointing it out.
So basically you're saying you can be smart but not too smart.
Basically, I'll add two segments to their point. So basically, it's totally true that the K-12 or K-9, which is the compulsory period, is the most regulated in China. So there are two segments that you might also look into. One is the early childhood segments. A lot of contents were even apps or ebooks or hardwares like educational toys, they will have a very good market because the consumers are just the parents. They are not regulated to not buying foreign brands. So this is one, and also because of the release of the one child policy in China. So like years ago, in China, you can only have one child, but now that the government canceled the policy, so you can have like 2 kids. So basically, the newborns are booming in China. So we see opportunities in the early childhood segments. And the other is actually in the later end, which is per se the secondary vocational schools. They are quite well founded in China. And also the government is actually encouraging the development of those vocational schools to close the gap of the talents in a lot of areas like manufacturing or like nursing, a lot of like finance, a lot of these areas. So these two areas might be the segments you could look into in China.
I just add one comment, and because Sophie just mentioned 2 new areas about that to encourage that foreign newcomers. One is the preschool. As preschool areas, Singapore has a good reputation in China. One of the premium brand operators in Singapore is Eaton House. So that actually we have a Chinese version of Eaton Kid. They have a lawsuit last year to say that which one is original. So actually, original is in UK. It's not anywhere. But anyway, that does mean that Singapore, the reputation for nursery, for kindergarten, actually is well received in China. Yeah.
I want to add something to the vocational part. Actually, statistics show there are more than 10% unemployment rate for youth in China every year. Meaning there is a huge gap, as Sophie mentioned, for vocational training. And actually there's a trend, so a lot of vocational training institutions in China are partnering with universities in China. So if you're in this space and looking into entering into China, it's also a good way to partner with universities there.
Yeah, so I actually wanted to come to that. So you spoke up pretty much, we touched upon the entire student lifetime over there, but the degree-based higher education is something that neither of you have mentioned or touched upon much. And I do want to pick that up because China does have, first of all, just in terms of numbers, China has 50 million students in tertiary education, but not all of it is degree-based education. In degree-based education, which is university education, they have about 27 million students, if I'm not mistaken. It is the largest degree-based education population in the world. So that's the biggest population. It's a huge market. And it's interesting that our panelists didn't really comment on that, and there's a reason to that. So would any of you want to talk about how to think about the higher education market, degree-based education market in China? And of course, a quick background to that is that largely it is public. So it's mostly public universities, big, strong, well-reputed public universities over there. There is a private market which has its own characteristics, but if either of you would care to talk a little bit more about that with the audience and what challenges that, or maybe opportunities, if any, it presents to potential market entrants.
So because our company's main shareholder is a university, so I think we may have some experience in this sector. We do have one vocational college in nearby Shanghai. So I think there's two markets in terms of degree-based tertiary education. One is the university, one is the vocational college. They are kind of distinctive markets. We see also a lot of IPOs in Hong Kong last year for the private college. Actually, if you look into their P&L, very profitable. So net profit ratio sometimes is 50%. But this market, we think, is difficult to get new license, as this market mainly for the consolidation for these existing ones to form bigger groups and then qualified for IPO. But we do see that there's a market demand for these colleges, service providers to adapt their curriculums to the market needs. So we saw a lot of foreign content providers to co-develop some majors or some courses, working with the private institutions, and also get certain portion of the tuition. So that's kind of a business model which is much easier to enter. And there are some, let's say, this kind not different and not business. There are some famous names. I mean that universities try to enter into Chinese market to get into the joint degree programs, like New York University in Shanghai, Duke University in Kunshan, and there are 9 programs. But and also I heard that some Singapore universities also considering that kind of choice. But most of these projects are not for business purpose, so I don't want to mention too much. But still, that is a very difficult area to get a license. Yeah.
I mean, there are about 1,000 joint degrees, foreign and international joint degrees that run in China. So it's a huge market, but I think Andrew picked it up. It may not necessarily be an opportunity for the for-profit operator or an investor in that space. Most of these are public university partnerships. There is, though I do want to ask, so in the higher education space, we recently saw that a Chinese company called Sunland, they filed for a $300 million IPO. They are in online higher education, vocational degrees. Do you think that there's a growing market for online higher education degrees in China? We know that companies like Laureate have tried to enroll students from China into their online programs run by Roehampton or by Liverpool, etc. But what about, do you think that's an opportunity, especially with increasing technology investment that's going in? Is that an opportunity for some of the folks in the room that accessing online higher education markets?
Yeah, definitely. So Sunland's main target is, the online degrees. Basically, I think it has a very good opportunities in China, because this is one also like one market that you can look into, which is a lot of foreigners or like foreign entries coming to China first look at Beijing, Shanghai, those first-tier cities. But actually, so it's not that they're very affluent, but the downside is that it's really, really competitive. A lot, and the educational resources are, I say, like not too much, but like it's people don't know what to choose actually. But actually, in 3rd, 4th tier cities in China, there's a gap of educational resources, and these are the areas that you can also look into. So for SongLearn is kind of this case. So what their target is those young people who live in third and fourth tier cities and cannot get a like university degrees or cannot get into universities. What they offer is a university degree and the online training programs for them, and they solve a lot of problems for them. And this actually has much larger populations than the people who actually live in cities. Yeah.
So we spoke about one of the challenges, which is around regulation and picking the right segments that create a conducive environment for you. Another challenge, and I think you guys briefly touched upon that, is the increasing cost of customer acquisition, right? And especially in each of the markets that you picked up, be it regular tutoring, so center-based, be it online, be it online English language learning, that is a big hurdle. So out of the $3 billion that you said were invested in education, how much of that was actually marketing spend? Good 50 to 60%, right? So what does that tell us? And I mean, what does that mean in terms of an investment strategy going in for somebody looking to enter the market or growing into the market?
I can share some insights on that. For a lot of companies that are coming into China, as a standalone company, they kind of exited. A lot of them exited. And for a lot of other companies, they choose to partner with a large distribution network in China because, as you said, the customer acquisition is pretty expensive in China. Sophie mentioned about some of the largest edtech companies in China, including VIPKid, Dada ABC. Like, the largest amount of that cost would be actually marketing, would be more than 50%. Because we have a sub branch of our business which is also live streaming, so we kind of know. And interestingly, this is something that's from our company perspective, we discovered that for one customer acquisition, you need to spend around like $150 for those tutoring services. So in a way, if you acquire like say 1 million students, you need to spend like $1 billion, more or less, and then that would get you probably only like 2 billion or 3 billion cash flow, and you need to spend like other money like on paying the teachers, etc., etc. So the profit rate is like around 10%. Some of them slightly higher than 10%. It's not really, that much lucrative business. So there is a saying in China saying that the platform is actually making money. The actual education providers are not. So Baidu is making money. Toutiao, which is also making money because they're selling advertising. And because of that, actually, the company that I represent is thinking of selling part of our, volume to other companies. Yeah,
Andrew, would you say that is your experience with the offline business that you have, or the more traditional business that you have as well?
Well, in offline business, I think you also see different sub-segments. For the offline 101 business, the customer acquisition cost is really high. I have to say that it's all around like $1,000 for one customer. And because the 101 business, and because the 101 business the retention rate is low because only for one time. So we constantly to acquire new clients, and it's true that majority of profits flow into these marketing costs. But for this small class business, it's because the retention rate is high. So we actually are making profits. So I think for the offline business, which we should do is we increase the retention rate, increase the referral rate, which can help us to reduce the costs. But it depends how famous your brand name already is or established. For a newcomer, it's just not very much possible. And another solution for that is try to do this, change the business model from 2C to to B to C. So it's like we work with this platform, and the platform, you know, and when we offer a good experience for the clients, and the clients will supposedly will go to our product directly. So that is kind of business, but it's kind of difficult to achieve such result. In summer, I think it's really expensive to get to the core business. If you are interested, you can look into this P&L of 51 Talk, which is listed in the United States. You see how, you know, such a huge amount of marketing costs they incurred every year. So the new business, even though that the contents, you have the confidence with your contents, but still that the customer acquisition is by far the biggest challenge in Chinese market.
Yeah. So I know that we probably have another 5 minutes before we open the floor to questions. So let's turn the attention to what can China do for operators. Chinese companies can do with operators here in Southeast Asia, India, as regional markets. What opportunities do companies like yours or Andrew, your company, or do you see, Sophie, with companies in general as they look at the region? So is it still attractive? I know, of course, Chinese companies have been investing in the US and the UK, but is this region of any interest? Can they add value? Can a lot of edtech that's going on, is any of that edtech or technology exportable to markets like India, which are similar in terms of tutoring, need for tutoring, or English language learning, which is similar to markets like Vietnam, Thailand, etc.?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's always been, so we have actually talked about like Chinese investors are looking outside for first like technologies like artificial intelligence, how like automations, adaptive technologies that they can acquire or they can invest to be used in their products, as well as like world recognized educational brands that they can invest and acquire. Apart from this, more like a copy to China model. So now I think not so much in education, but in tech industry in China as a whole is the opportunities that or excitement around like copy from China. So especially the tech industry, like the bike sharing or like hotels expansion into Southeast Asia or South America and other regions. We have seen some similarities or share some commonalities of like parents' mentalities in Southeast Asia as what the Chinese parents are thinking. So it might be might be opportunities for some Chinese tutoring models to be applied in the Southeast Asia region.
For example, that mathematics is highly developed in China. So I just mentioned London's Education Bureau just introduced a Chinese way of teaching these mathematics to UK public pupils. So that's one thing that probably we can replicate here as well. But of course, the Singapore play a very good score in PISA. So I think they also have very good models here.
I think Asia in general shares very similar mindset in education. Parents here pay like 1/3 or even more, maybe 45% of their household income on kids' education, and a lot of the schools and institutions are exam focused. So there are a lot of similarities. So as a Chinese company, when we are thinking of expansion, obviously would be in other countries in Asia rather than European or American countries. But then when it comes to that, we're looking for companies that would already have establishments or operations in a certain region. That would be a way. It's like they've introduced when other companies are looking into Chinese market. It's better to partner with an existing company rather than just to deploy your own employees there. So this is also our approach. So when we look into international expansion, we're looking into companies that are kind of mature in the existing market already.
All right. So I think we're out of time for the panel, but let's open the floor for questions.
Hi. I think it's a question for you, Abhinav, and with their inputs. Somebody was mentioning yesterday that companies in India, education providers, are not crossing $100 million or a couple of $100 million marks. Now, India and China share the same demographics in terms of the population and the spending capacity of people. Why do you think, are there companies in China, are there many companies in China that are having substantial revenue? And if so, what do you think is the key factor that drives this revenue model?
Yeah, I can give my answer, and obviously the panelists are welcome to add there. So you're right that in terms of demographics or volume, they are at par or close to. But in terms of affordability, it's a sea difference. So they're nowhere even close to it. Also the difference is the structure. So again, China is blessed with a fairly strong public education sector, which frees up household income to invest in parallel ancillary auxiliary services like tutoring, English language, etc. Whereas in India, your first place where you put your money is for a private school, right? So of course, yes, the numbers are the same, but fundamentally your starting point on what you can absolute dollar value you can spend is higher in China. And then two, where do you spend that dollar value? Actually, you don't need to spend it on school education. I mean, we have great public school system in cities like Shanghai, Beijing, etc. So you can use that money for outside school or non-formal education. Whereas in India, you take that dollar, that little dollar that you get, and you say, I'm going to go send my kids to a good private school. Anything you'd like? Anything else?
That's a great answer. I'll add something to that. Apart from what he just mentioned, I think there's another reason. I think the technology is catching up, but is not yet as competitive as technologies in China. Meaning, in traditional education, when you expand, you take a lot of time because you have to actually hire people, employ people in different places. It's very labor intensive and takes a lot of time. But when online education comes into space, it can scale up much more quickly. So in the past years, a lot of Chinese companies are booming because of the evolvement of technology. But there are successful cases in India as well. Like look at Baidu. It's operating in the internet space. That's why it's actually, developing very fast.
I just want to quickly add, because Chen was talking about technologies. One that is very out there is the WeChat ecosystem that China has. So in 2017, there's also like a very big trend is how education companies offer their services via WeChat. For those who don't know WeChat, which is like the most popular social apps in China, kind of like Facebook plus WhatsApp. So it's basically the maturity of the mobile payment is quite high in China. So it's for like, I actually don't carry cash in China, and then I just use the mobile payment. So it's very easy for a learner to just pay like 200, 300, 500 via WeChat for educational services, and that's actually a very good monetization way for educational tools and apps in China. And this is actually just I think this is a trend that we see in 2017 or like just in this year, actually. Yeah.
So pro tip, if you want to do business in China, download WeChat.
Hi, my name is Hoa, and I'm from Summit Education in Vietnam. We are in the test preparation and admission consulting business, so obviously we have a lot to learn from our Chinese colleague, and we also trying to develop a blended learning platform. I'm already working with a company to have a Chinese company to distribute mobile application for English learning in Vietnam. We would like to work with more companies, and I would like to get your advice in terms of like what are some of the upcoming education conference that people like us should attend this year in order to get to know more people. And if you can recommend any online resources, whether it's in English or in Chinese, I would really love to look at them. Thank you.
Okay, I will answer, and then you can comment because you're talking about conferences. We hold a big conference, so we will actually we do it annually in November. So last year we attracted like 5,000 people from 20 countries to Beijing. So this year will also happening at the end of October or like early November. So this will be the one that I recommend. And but for anyone who actually can speak Chinese, you can also come in mid June. We will have a separate we'll do it actually twice this year. So in mid June we will do a but I would say like in Chinese, but have more learning components in that, to a smaller, more high-level summit. And in the October and end of October and early November one, we will have a more large-scale summit.
Okay, so I reach out to you.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, great. Yeah.
All right, so pro tip number 2, download WeChat, contact Sophie. All right, so I think time is up. Thank you so much to our panelists. You've come a long way for this conference. I hope it was an engaging discussion for you. And thank you, everyone, for your time and listening to us.
Yeah, I'll take it from there. Thank you. It's great. Thank you. Very insightful. We're very, very jealous.